Ja, repeat it. Hy neem nou, hy gaan van self aan springe af.
Okay.
Okay,
Sorry,
sorry.
guys. Okay, we're continuing. I'm saying that simple two-part form is an instrumental thing. It comes from dance music, music that accompanies dances, and it goes right through the tonal music history. Three-part actually started as a vocal thing. It's something in the Baroque period that you find in vocal music, not so much in instrumental music. And by way of the da capo aria. Okay, that's where we are now. It starts as a vocal form, but the reason I'm including it here is because it then later gets incorporated into the tradition of writing for instruments as well. So it originated as a vocal three-part form. I'm on page 5, sometimes called song form for obvious reasons, especially popular in the operas, the oratorios, the cantatas, etc. of the 18th century. Usually only, so what the composers would do is they would write out section A and B. And then that's why it's called the da capo. Da capo means go back to the beginning, go back to the head, the start, the cap. At the end of section B, you'll find the word fine, finish. I lie, not at the end of section B. At the end of section A, you will find the word fine or finish. And then at the end of B, it will say da capo, and you go back, da capo al fine, and you go back and you repeat A again. So in the music, this isn't written out. So when you perform it, what's written out is this one and this one. And then it says, go back to the beginning and play up to fine. So you play again until you get to the word fine, which is over there. So in fact, what you're playing is A, B, A. So the salient macrothematic, macrorhythmic, and macrotonal features of this form look like this. So the section A will be thematic. It will have a tune. It will be the melody of the piece. And it will close with a double bar. Not repeat signs, just a double bar. And it will be harmonically closed at the beginning and harmonically closed at the end. It will begin and end harmonically closed in the home key. Section B will be harmonically open. It will also close with a double bar, no repeat signs. It can be thematic, it can also have a tune, and sometimes it can have more of a kind of a transitional character. And obviously when you repeat A, you do exactly the same again. All right, so let me just show you an example. I think that actually speaks louder than any. Let me just find an example of the da capo aria. Here is one that doesn't have the words, but this comes out of this is an early classical composer, late Baroque, early classical, Gluck, who wrote the opera Orfeo amongst many other operas. And this is an aria out of Act 3 of this opera, and it's in C major. Now notice how the music is written. There's a double bar over there. Notice no repeat signs, just a double bar, and it says fine. That says finish. Fine means finish. And when you get to the end of the next bit of music, it says DC al fine. That means da capo, go back to the beginning, and then perform it up to the word fine. In other words, you're going to play that, then you're going to play this, or sing this, and then you're going to go back to the beginning, and you're going to do this bit again until you get to finish. So you're going to go A, B, A. And look how it's designed macrothematically and macrotonally. So you can clearly see that we've got 3 macrorhythmic units. A, B, and then you go back and you repeat A. How does that work macrothematically? We're in C major again. There are no chords here, but I think you can deduce the chord structure of the melody. Dominant. 5, 1, so for me. Imperfect authentic cadence in C major. So that's a closed ending. Begins and ends on the tonic of C major. Now we go to the part after the double bar and we are in a harmonically open. We were in C major and look, there's an F sharp. So we're already going into the dominant key, G major. And then so it ends with a 5-1, but it's a G major 5-1. So that is not that's harmonically open. It starts harmonically open, it ends harmonic open, and then it says da capo al fine. So you go back and you repeat the C major section. So macrothematically, we can say this one has the distinctive tune da da dum da dum da 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 dum. Now we've got a section that isn't so thematically prominent, but it's not contrasting to A either. It's kind of a carrying on of the idea of A, but in a more developmental way. It kind of develops the idea of A. And here we have the da 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 da. You can see the da 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 da. It's not a new idea, but it's not exactly a repeat of A either. Then it goes back to the more distinctive thematic section. So we can say that both of them are actually thematic in a way. And that harmonically they are closed, closed, open, open. And then we return to closed, closed again. Okay? Thematic, this one can be thematic or it can be developmental. In this case it was more thematic really. And then you go back to thematic, double bar, double bar, double bar, no repeat signs, closed, closed, open, open, closed, closed. All right, that is the da capo form. Okay, the reason why we want to know about it, although we're studying instrumental music, is that it becomes something that gets used by instrumental composers as well. It started out as vocal, but it does eventually, in the 19th century in particular, it becomes an instrumental form. All right, that's simple ternary. Now we go to a much more interesting and subtle kind of development. Where's that page I was scribbling on? I don't know what I did with it now. Excuse me, just give me a minute. I'm starting to write out about the historical timeline, and I've lost that page. Oh gosh, I don't know what I did with it now, but let me just do it again. Just focus on that page. All right, we had two part over here, and we had closed, open, open, closed, that relationship. And that was Baroque, and this was instrumental. Then we had a vocal tradition, which was the da capo aria. It looked like that. A, thematic, closed, closed. B, could be thematic or developmental, open, open. Then we go back to A, which is harmonically closed, closed, which is a thematic thing. Now we are going to a different ways in which, in the classical, late Baroque, shall I call it, and early classical composers begin to play with this idea and this idea to find ways in which they can bring them together. And that is discussed on page 6 of your notes. Evolution of classical 3-part or ternary from Baroque 2-part. Okay, and the first one we want to look at is one called rounded binary or rounded 2-part. It's something that you see a lot in sort of mid-1700s, late Baroque music or early classical music. So you have there a macro-rhythmic and macro-tonal design that still looks like binary form. Where's that page now? I keep losing it. Where was I writing now? Have I lost it again? Ai toch. Oh, sorry guys, I lost my page again. Oh, here it is. Let me keep it separate now. Oh, this was the original one. I found the original one. Okay, we're looking here now. And we're looking at a form called rounded binary. Late Baroque, early classical. What it looks like when you look at the music is it looks exactly like that. You will have a macro-rhythmic unit of music there, and there'll be a double bar and repeat signs, and there'll be another macro-rhythmic unit of music on the other side, and it will also go harmonically closed to harmonically open, and then from harmonically open to harmonically closed. So macro-rhythmically, one bit of music, stop, another bit of music, stop, and macro-tonally, closed, open, open, closed, it looks exactly the same as that one. This is also closed, open, open, closed. The only difference has got to do with the detail of the macro-thematic design. The macro-thematic design. So just go back and look there again. Oh Lordy, what have I done with my pages now? Getting them all confused. Here we go. Is that what you will find is an element of the 3-part design is discernible in the thematic content of the piece, in that the tail of section A will be repeated as the tail of section B. Okay, so what you is then they're very short little pieces, and they have a distinct sense of wanting to round off the piece. Go to page 12 as an example. There are 2 examples there. There's a Mozart one and a Schubert one, where you can see that sense of not the opening idea, not the main thematic idea, that doesn't come back. So here we have in the Mozart, we have a B flat major theme. And then we have a second phrase that goes. And then I can't see. Modulates from B flat major to F major. Ends Dido in F major. So it's closed, open, B flat, F. And it's that second phrase with the extension in it. That's where the modulation occurs. Okay, now we repeat that, A, repeat. Now we go to sense of changing keys, what we call harmonic flux. G minor, bits of F major, before we get back to B flat major. So we start with a G minor feeling, and then we repeat that in F major. I'm sorry, I can't see. Okay. And all along, I'm marking my phrases. Da-da-dum, bum, ba-da-dum, bum, ba-da-dum, bum, ya-da-da-da-dum. 4 bars. Ya-da-da-dum. And then it gets repeated as another 4 bars. Now I go to this section and it goes. Sorry. Here I have F, A, C, E flat, dominant of B flat again. And the end in B flat major again. So the B section starts harmonically open in G minor, ends harmonically closed in B flat. But what I notice about that is this thing, which took me to F major in section A, is repeated exactly, except it's been transposed to B flat major now. Here it is. If you go and compare it bar for bar, bar 5 is the same as this bar. Bar 6 is the same as that bar. Bar 7 is the same as that bar. Bar 8 is the same as that bar, etc., 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 up to the end. So the tail of A is exactly the same as the tail of B, excepting now it's in B flat major, whereas there it ended harmonically open in F major. And here we have exactly the same thing happening. This is we're going now to the 19th century. Oh, my page has gone again. Here it is. So rounded binary, you can see, goes through Mozart, through the classical period, and now we're looking at an example of it. Schubert, who's a romantic 19th century composer. So once you establish these forms, they tend to continue through the history of tonal music. All right, here's a Schubert example, and it's in A flat major, and it goes. But there again, you can see Schubert veers off from the norm. He makes the thing closed. It starts in A flat, it ends in A flat. So he doesn't necessarily keep the closed, open, closed model. He goes closed. Then he goes to open. Now he's not in A flat major anymore, he's in F minor. Then he goes to E flat. Then he goes back to A flat major over here. And you can look at, see, bar 13 is exactly the same as bar 5. Bar 6 and bar 14 are the same. Bar 7 and the next bar. And the two final bars are the same. So the tail phrase is exactly the same. So it's just the first opening gestures of each section that are different. The two tails are the same. And that is called rounded binary. And the distinctive thing about when you're calling it binary is that section B, if I can just go back to the beginning of your notes, page 2 and page 3, the relationship between A and B in terms of their macro-thematic connection. The two sections will have a strong thematic motivic connection. You've seen that in all the examples now. They use the same kind of ideas. Da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-dum. It's the same ideas that were used in the previous section, but B won't be an actual repeat of A. B will be a kind of a logical continuation of A. So where the one stops, the other one carries on. So that sense in rounded binary is perpetuated by the fact that the distinctive character of section A is its opening tune. And that is never repeated. B just carries on with the same idea but without actually repeating it. It's not an actual repeat. It's just a continuation. So the actual repeat is not the distinctive head of each melody so much as its closing phrase. So therefore it is still perceived as being a binary form, a two-part form, where B is a continuation rather than a repeat. I've lost that page again. Using that idea. All right, now let me continue to the next kind. After rounded binary, the next kind we get is called incipient ternary. Incipient ternary is also a mid-18th century thing. So it's about the same time, late Baroque, but actually more early classical. Incipient ternary is about also here. Incipient ternary, and how does that work? Small scale designs with again, it's a piece that has a binary macro thematic and macro tonal design. So I mean macro rhythmic and macro tonal design. So you still have a bit of music up to there, double bar repeat, and another bit of music. That doesn't change. That's the binary macro rhythmic design. And you still get closed, open, open, closed. So the binary macro tonal design doesn't change either. But it's called incipient ternary again because the details of the thematic treatment is different. So what you've got here in rounded binary is the tail of A gets repeated as the tail of B. A different detail happens in what we now call incipient ternary. Now we're using the word ternary for the first time. Three-part. Ternary means three-part, because in this case what happens is the head, the distinctive opening gesture of theme A comes back. And that's it. Oh, okay, it's repeating. That sense of, oh, it's the same thing again, comes back, and therefore we call it A again. So what we have here is, you can see again, two macro rhythmic units, A, double bar, repeat signs, and then two things happen in the second macro rhythmic unit. We have a section B. Now it's much more likely not to be a thematic unit, in other words, not to have its own tune, but to rather just continue to develop the ideas of section A, or to be what we call transitional, just like a bridging kind of a passage. It will be harmonically open, and then the head of A will come back. If we say the head of A, what we mean by that is it will be very short. It won't be as long as the original A. So let's have a look and see how that works. Best is just to look at the examples, because that says more than anything else. So I'm referring you to page 13 now. We did this example as well when we looked at modulation. We have a thematic period here, two phrases. There's a 4-bar phrase in A major, and then it's followed by this was a modulating period, so it goes from closed A major to open E major, but it ends as a period on a perfect authentic cadence. So that is a thematic period with two 4-bar phrases. Now we go to something which is like based on the dominant 7th of A major. It's harmonically open. And it ends with that half cadence. So it's got very much a dominant. It's waiting for the tonic, and it's still waiting, and it's still waiting. That is what we call a transitional character. And what happens after that half cadence? Can you see this is that coming back? So you have a kind of a aha, it's coming back again feeling halfway through this macro rhythmic unit. The head of A comes back, so you have a very distinct sense that you must call it A coming back. But notice that it's only 1, 2, 3, 4 bars long, whereas that one was 8 bars long. So this one is only one phrase. And look what it does. It takes the first bar of this phrase and then it takes the closing phrase takes that idea. Da, 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 da. So it takes the first little bit from that phrase and the second little bit from that phrase, and it sticks it together into one 4-bar phrase. And you can see that this is the same thing happening here. Here's another example out of 19th century music. And again, it's just 4 bars at the end, which is a kind of a shortened version of the original. Taking the first little bit from there, the second little bit from there, and sticking them together and making one short 4-bar phrase. Now you'll notice the words that I'm using here. What do you call it if da 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 dum bum bum is, oh, that's the return of A. That means the return of A and the music that happened when section B started, they can't be part of the same thematic period. A period is like a sentence in language. So, and the sections or the parts of the music, they are like chapters in a book. So you can't have a sentence or a period that goes over 2 chapters in you know, you can't have a sentence that has 2 chapters in it. It's impossible. That means that if this is not a full sentence or period in the music, it's only one thing. And if this is not, this is also only 4 bars, then they must be called what's called an independent phrase. It means it's not part of a group. It stands by itself. So B is that transitional thing. It's harmonically open and it's a 4-bar unit that has a transitional character. That is section B. This is a thematic. It has 2 different jobs, transition and theme. So because it's only 4 bars, it can't be called a period. The phrases were 4 bars. The periods were 8 bars. So this must be an independent phrase, and that must be an independent phrase. All right? Whereas those are included in the period. So first of all, the music must have the same job. For this phrase and that phrase to be put together in one period, they must be fulfilling the same function. And the function here is to state the main theme of the piece. This is not stating the main theme of the piece, it's the linking phrase, which is different to repeating in very concise terms the idea of the main theme. Those are 2 different things, so they must be 2 separate units of music. All right, so that is what we call incipient ternary. Incipient ternary. In other words, here you have mostly 2 phrases, but it could be more. That is an actual thematic unit and it forms a period. Here you have two independent phrases. This one is transitional and it is section B. This one is thematic and it is a shortened version of section A. So you call it A1 because it's not exactly the same as the original A. Okay, A1. A1. See? A1. Because it's not exact bar by bar repeat of the original A. And what A1 normally comprises is, it takes the first subphrase from the original, the first phrase of the original A, and it takes the second subphrase from the end of the second phrase. So it'll take that little bit there and that little bit there and put it together in one phrase. All right, and then the last one we get is called classical ternary. So it continues this journey of taking two macrorhythmic units with a binary macro tonal design, closed, open, open, closed, and gradually extending it until it becomes what we call classical ternary. Now this is very common of the classical composers, Mozart, Haydn, Beethoven, they use this form. And it's pretty much the same as the incipient ternary. The only difference is in classical ternary, page 7, the return of section A is much longer. So in incipient ternary, it's one tiny little phrase. Now it's at least a period, if not more, that comes back. So that now you have an asymmetric design where you have a transitional section B that is harmonically open, and then you have an entire period or more that comes back to balance out that one. So this one and this one are about the same length. The only reason why this is now going to be called A1, not exactly the same as A, is because this one is very often harmonically open at its end. It modulates at its end. And obviously when it comes back at the end, it's not going to modulate anymore, so the composer will keep it in the home key at the end. So you get a very clear sense of, there it says, statement, contrast, and restatement. But notice how it is still clothed in the shape of the original binary form. There's one macrorhythmic unit that goes closed, open, and then you repeat it. And then there's a second macrorhythmic unit that goes open, closed, which gets repeated. But inside that macrorhythmic and macrotonal unit, you've got two macrothematic sections. You've got a B section, which is transitional, which ends harmonically open. It mostly ends with a half cadence, anticipating the return of the home key. And then you've got a repeat or a varied repeat of the original A section, which is harmonically closed. All right, so let's just, by way of finishing off then, have a look at an example of the classical ternary form. Okay, yeah, Mozart. Here's an example by Mozart. Okay, we've got a piece in B flat major that goes dominant, and back to tonic, and then modulated to the dominant F with a little cadential extension. Okay, a modulating period from B flat to F with two phrases. The second one is slightly extended by that cadential extension. Now we go to this harmonically open thing that's kind of modulating and you're not actually quite sure what key you're in. and you clearly have a sense of, we're waiting for the return of that half cadence feeling. That's the end of section B. It ends with that feeling of the dominant, so that you are waiting for section A and the return of the tonic chord. So it starts with a sense of, I'm not sure what key I'm in, but it ends with a dominant chord in the home key. And then the main theme comes back, but now you can see da 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 dum bum bum is now in the lower register, and the accompaniment is at the top. Sorry, where are we? Yeah. But it's still the same melodies, basically, just a varied version of it. And from this point, Mozart changes there from dum da 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 dum. It's not the same as da 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 dum. That jumps up a sixth, so that it can modulate to F major. This one jumps up from F to G, a ninth. Sorry, a seventh. So it can end in B flat major this time. Da da dum bum bum, instead of going da da dum bum bum in F major. So it stays harmonically closed this time. Now it's got a slightly longer extension. A whole added phrase as an extension, whereas there it was only 2 bars. So, in other words, this A repeat was actually longer than the original A, and certainly not shorter. So you have a fully fledged sense now of this coming back of A. Is very important now. So you have a period over here. Here you can have one phrase, or you can have a group of phrases ending in a half cadence, and there you have a whole period or more sometimes coming back. So it goes closed, it still goes closed, open, open, closed, and you still have 2 macrorhythmic units, but you have a very clear sense of 3 macrothematic sections, and therefore you call it ternary or 3-part. And that is the typical way in which the classical composers write 3-part form. It's got kind of mixed attributes of 2-part and 3-part in it, actually, whereas that is actually a much more genuine version of 3-part form, because the closed, closed, open, open, closed, closed, and the 3 macrothematic sections and the macrorhythmic divisions all happen at exactly the same place. So that is something which comes back to, or comes into instrumental music in the 19th century. So next year when you do 19th century musical form, you're going to do that da capo form quite a lot in instrumental music as well. But as far as the classical period of the 18th century is concerned, this is actually the more prevalent ternary design that you will find. Okay, so I just want to say one thing. I also sent you an old set of notes. I'm almost done now. An old set of notes about form. And again, this is something that you don't have to worry too much about. This is not something I've focused on this year, or that I asked Lara to focus on with you in the first semester. But the essence of it you did do with her. In your melody chapter, you did with her the idea of the melodic period with different phrases and sub-phrases and the different kinds of extensions that you could get. There is just this, what I just wanted to refer you to here, just for a bit of background reading, is this idea that when you analyze music, you look at different jobs that music has. So you say up to here, it was all introductory, or it was all transitional, or was it thematic? Was it the actual tune? then if it was, then that music all belongs together. If it was like a transition passage or a link, then that was the job of the music and that belongs together. If it was a kind of an introduction that said, wait, that's the kind of music that says, wait for it, I haven't started yet. That's what introductory is. And then, or whatever, then the tune starts. So it's on the basis, listen to what the music is telling you. What job is it doing? And on that basis, you divide your music up into bits. Okay, that's the one thing. The thematic is the one that you focused on in the first semester. That's the actual tune. But I want you to think about those bits in the middle now when you get to the B sections that could possibly be transitional as well. And then I wanted to talk to you about this idea that all thematic sections are usually the ones that have periods, that have 2 phrases or 3 phrases or 4 phrases, a number of phrases that belong together that end with a perfect authentic cadence that you call a period. But you also get ones that are not, especially in the B sections in the middle now. You will get either what we saw just now, a thing by itself, a phrase by itself that doesn't belong to a group. There was just one transitional phrase in the middle, and then A came back. And so that has to be called an independent phrase. It doesn't belong in a group or period. Sometimes that transitional thing can be longer. It can be a group of phrases. But if it doesn't end with a perfect authentic cadence, then you can't call it a period. So here, for example, in this example we looked at of the da capo aria, we had the whole section B was in the dominant key, and it didn't give you a sense of a perfect authentic cadence in C major. So in fact, all of those phrases that belong to the G major feeling together were what we would call a phrase group rather than a melodic period. The period has got the distinct sense of ending on a perfect authentic cadence in the home key. Or being a modulating period, it could also be a modulating period. So it's just those pages, it's page 10. And page 11, am I right? I can't get to page 11 now. Yes, page 10 and page 11 in that old set of notes. They just give you a little bit of background again about the different functions of the material and the idea of the phrase group or the independent phrase, which features in these distinctions of these different binary and ternary forms. All right, thank you very much. And on that basis, then, I want you to complete this assignment, your final assignment. As I said, everything must be in. The sooner you do this, the better, the guys. But I will give you, as the absolute limit, as I said, up to the 24th of November, then everything must be in. I've given you, I think, 5 pieces. I've written them out here: Mozart, Schubert, Bach, Beethoven, Grieg. So you can see I've tried to spread it between Baroque, classical and romantic. And I've said in each case, you must start by doing a score analysis. A score analysis means you go to the actual piece, and on it you now mark what I've said. The keys. In other words, you say this is in D major, and you write D major, capital D, colon, tonic chord. And then you write closed there. And then you show the phrases and you show the periods, and then at each phrase ending, remember, so if you say if that's a phrase and then it starts again, endings, at each phrase ending, you have to show a cadence. Go back to your chapter 2 and look again in all that Laura did with you in the first semester, how you indicate cadences. And you do the same there, and then you indicate the key here. As you can see, we started in D major, but we're ending in A major. So you'll say 5-1-A, perfect authentic cadence, but you will write there, open. And then you go and you say, this is up, and then you do the same. And then, so that's the keys, the cadences, and the phrases. A grouping together, if you think there are periods or phrase groups, like da 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 da, and everything up to there belongs together. Then you look at what belongs together here, or doesn't it? And if they don't, then they are independent phrases. Then you write that in. And then the sections would be A and B, or A, B, A1, or whatever the case may be. That you have to write in on the score. And then I say, name the compositional design or form. So we have done 5 of them now. We did simple binary, then we did rounded binary, then we did incipient ternary, we did classical ternary, and we did the da capo form. Okay, those were the 5 that we did. And I'm giving you 5 pieces. So I'm basically giving you an example of each one of those 5, and you have to tell me which is which. So you have to say, first of all, this is a whatever you think it is. Simple binary. And then you have to motivate your answer by describing the macro-rhythmic, the macro-thematic, and the macrotonal design. So if you say it's simple binary, then you have to say, the motivation would be, it has 2 macro-rhythmic units separated by a double bar and repeat signs. Its harmonic design is closed, open, open, closed. Sorry, its macrotonal design, and its macrothematic design is a B is a continuation rather than a repeat or a contrast of A, because those are the main features of a simple binary form. So go back to the notes and look what the main features are, and then that would be your motivation for choosing that design as the answer to the question. Okay? So that's what you have to basically do, and then that's your assignment. Yeah. All right, and that you must hand in to me by the 24th of November. Thank you very much. Good luck, and let me know if you need any help, okay? Contact me anytime. All right, bye-bye.